What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to Sin City Crypto. My name is David. I'm joined with Robin, and today we are talking about SEC Chairman Gary Gensler advocating to pass on oversight of crypto spot markets to the CFTC. Let's not waste any time and get right into it. Covering the news here, Gary giving up oversight of spot markets, ? This source from the block. Gary Gensler supports expanding his former agency's power, which was the CFTC, over digital asset markets beyond its current role in futures and derivatives. Gensler's support follows a recommendation from the Financial Stability Oversight Council, which also made the recommendation in a unanimous vote, to which Gary Gensler also sits on that panel, which means he was one of those unanimous votes. Robin, are you surprised at this? We know Gary's track record since he became commissioner. He wants to regulate all the cryptocurrency markets, and it feels like lately he's been kind of stepping back a little bit. What are your initial thoughts, and if you have any ideas as to why this is happening?
I'm under the assumption that he's going to be granting, or he wants CFTC to regulate Bitcoin. I think that him saying the crypto markets, I don't think that is what we're reading at face value. I think he's like, okay, what they deem a commodity and they do not deem a security, they give it to the CFTC. So, with that said, Bitcoin, maybe Ethereum, and everything else is all them. So, would this change anything from what we've seen from them as far as them suing individuals, celebrities, exchanges, your lending protocols, anybody that's profiting off of anything outside of Bitcoin? I think that all stays apart. Even if they do give spot market to CFTC as far as oversight and regulation, don't see it changing what we saw with XRP. Don't see it changing what they deem securities and these rug pull tokens, going after celebrities. That's all going to stay the same because in their eyes, those are still securities. And they're not looking to have the CFTC regulate securities. They're just trying to get them to regulate the spot market on cryptos they deem commodities.
Which, as of right now, it used to be Ethereum and Bitcoin. But since the merge from proof of work to proof of stake with Ethereum, they have started to kind of walk back. We haven't heard ETH and commodity used in the same sentence in quite a while.
They've been quiet. They've been quiet about it. Now, they haven't taken a stance. They never have taken a stance. They've, in the past, former chairs have taken a stance and said Ethereum was a commodity as well, or they said it's sufficiently decentralized that it's not a security. The current administration hasn't been on that same camp. And, you know, as you mentioned, the merge could make an argument that, hey, now it is more like a security, at least at this moment, than it was when it was proof of work. So interesting to see what direction the SEC goes with when it goes to Ethereum. But it would be nice for them to pick a side of the fence at least. Right. Because I think if they even if it was in the negative side, at least at that point, we can start being like, hey, well, you can make an argument for it is a commodity. But I'm curious to see where the SEC lands when it comes to Ethereum.
They got to draw a line. They got to draw a line and stick to that line. Now, say if you're on this side of the line, you're a security. If you're on that side of the line, you're a commodity. We don't have that yet.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And I think that all cryptos, I mean, even historically looking at Bitcoin, at some point, usually, you know, closer to its ICO or its conception, most of these cryptos do share what the SEC says, a lot of characteristics of a security. And for that reason, you got to determine when does it become decentralized? When does it have sufficient utility that it is no longer a investment contract, but hey, it's a token that you can use, facilitate transactions to move data. And on top of that, you know, the company that founds it or the foundation that starts it, they're not in control of it. And it's basically a commodity that lives on the internet. And where's that line? And when they make some kind of parameters, because at some point there will have to be parameters for crypto. I mean, the space is growing, and yeah, they're not going to ditch this narrative that these speculative tokens or these new projects aren't securities. We know that they're going to always call them that. And so at what point do you move from security to commodity? That is to be seen. I'm just curious that if he gives up power on Bitcoin, will the CFTC make a decision on ETFs? Well, will they finally put up their hands and say, hey, a green light on our side for the ETF, CFTC, why don't you regulate it? We're cool with it. And that's what I'm hoping comes out of this.
That's what it sounds like.
That's what it sounds like. Yeah. And
so, yeah. So if Gensler goes through with this, right, and he says, all right, you know what? Anything related to Bitcoin, whether it's a spot ETF, derivatives ETF, whatever the case may be, CFTC,
yeah, please, that'd be so great.
Let's say that happens. And of course, we don't know the answer. We're speculating. We're hypothesizing. And what time frame would you think a spot ETF for Bitcoin would get passed?
Man, at the rate that the U.S. government and any of their branches run, it's going to be a while. I still think you're probably nothing this year. That's for sure. 2022 and spot Bitcoin ETF, nah. But maybe next year, early next year. I think that's a realistic time frame. And
if you look at it from the government's perspective, right? If the CFTC gets a hold of everything Bitcoin, right? And they decide to pass a spot Bitcoin ETF, think about all the new tax revenue that's going to be flowing into the government. And we know the current state of the government, the economics are terrible. We're at a over 120% debt to GDP ratio, which is not good. And so can't you argue that you might get pushed from these, Congress people to the CFTC that say, hey, let's get this going sooner than later. It's an extra source of tax revenue for the government.
I think if there is a rally in Congress to get something like this pushed, I don't think that tax would be incentive. I'm not saying that it's not a factor, but I think simply getting behind when it comes to fintech and this emerging technology that is blockchain. I think the potential that it has to be disruptive and that it is better than alternatives. You don't want to get left behind. And, the United States, they do lead a technical revolution time and time again on a historical measure. And so do you want to miss out on this? I think that is more the narrative from politicians that I'm seeing is that, hey, Canada is embracing Bitcoin, European nations are embracing Bitcoin, and nation states just around the world are more open to generating revenue, tax revenue, as you mentioned, and it's also just a hedge on technology. And right now you're stifling technology and you're stifling growth when it comes to the economic sector by putting all these roadblocks in place. And I think politicians are more concerned about getting left behind versus tax revenue. Not saying that it isn't a factor, because at the end of the day, money powers the economy and generate more money. That is beneficial. But I think from what I've heard, it's, hey, we want to embrace Bitcoin because we know it's the future and don't want to get left behind. Other countries are a lot further ahead than we are at this point.
All right, let's fast forward. CFTC gets Bitcoin. CFTC passes a spot Bitcoin ETF. What happens to Bitcoin? What happens to price?
Well, I think the SEC is still going to approve or deny the applications. That's still in their wheelhouse. But oversight and regulation, I think it would fall on CFTC. So at the end of the day, it's not out of Gary's control or the SEC's control to make a determination whether something can be traded on the stock market as an ETF. That still falls under the jurisdiction of the SEC. However, the regulation, and and all the details, and basically they just put up their hands, and that. So
okay, so you know that for 100% certainty because I don't. So even if it's a commodity spot ETF, the SEC still has to approve it.
Yeah, future. So the CFTC will regulate futures and derivatives. Now they also can. I don't know the full breakdown, but I do know I've looked into this a little bit that the SEC, even if they were to relinquish jurisdiction, they still are the ones that pass ETFs. At least that's my information gathered.
So then what would be the point of him if he just denied another spot ETF from Wisdom Tree like 2 days ago? If he's going to continue to do this, then what's the point of coming out and saying, yeah, we want to hand it over if you're not going to pass it anyways? It just, to me, that just doesn't make sense. But
it's how much responsibility you got on your plate and who's going to regulate what.
Pass it anyways, what's the point? What does it matter, Gary? If you're not going to pass it anyways, what does it matter? There's nothing to regulate over and oversee. What does it matter? But let's say it does get passed. Spot ETF hits Wall Street. What's going to happen is anyone that applies and gets access to be able to list a spot ETF, you have to have an equivalent amount of the underlying asset on hand to which the amount of liquidity you provide to the market. And so take for example, you have a $500 million ETF, a spot ETF. Well, you're going to have $500 million worth of Bitcoin that you're holding to be able to offer that ETF on the market. So it'll be like a domino. You'll get the first one to get approval. And let's say it's Grayscale. They already have 600,000 Bitcoin. So they're not going to rush out and go and, scoop up Bitcoin. But then you'll have these other companies who've been trying to get listed as a spot ETF. They're going to have to go out and scoop up Bitcoin for liquidity and scoop up Bitcoin for liquidity. And what's that going to happen to the price when Bitcoin is already near a bottom? Might have already bottomed. You have a huge catalyst in a spot ETF. On top of that, you now have clarity and regulation for these institutions to now be able to come in and not only buy it for themselves and hold it on their balance sheet if they choose to do so in that environment, or offer it to their clients, not just custody to the high net worth individuals. So this could be, and I believe this would be, a catalyst to kick off the next bull market. You think that's possible?
Possibly. I was looking up. It seems as though the Gary Gensler is trying to transfer more stablecoin authority over to the CFTC. So stablecoin and Bitcoin is what it seems like. So
it's interesting.
Yeah. So it seems like stablecoins are more the focus that they want to transfer power to, which is right in line with what we're saying. And that they want to be out here, the sheriff and police, the smaller cryptos, the altcoins. They're still going to sue people. I don't know. I think as far as a bull market, obviously more liquidity in the system, more institutions in there, more regulatory clarity is beneficial for our space in its entirety, even in the stablecoin game, even in crypto. The more money we take out of the traditional system and inject into the new one, the better off we're going to be, because technology that we've been running on is outdated and not efficient. And a lot of people have their hands in a pot that doesn't need
hands in.
Yeah, exactly. So.
All right, so interesting, and we'll continue to keep an eye on this. But thank you guys so much for watching. We hope you enjoy the content. Make sure on your way out, you like the video, subscribe to Sin City Crypto, and come join us Monday through Friday for our daily live show starting at 10:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. That'll do it for today, guys. On behalf of myself and Robin, thank you so much. Enjoy your weekend. We will see you next week. Take care. Peace.